do you think that only the leadership of President Isayas is enough for him to be invited? That's one. So only the leadership, because what we are seeing, what you said from the beginning, what we hear, what we read is that most of the time, whether it's Ethiopia, Egypt, or Iran or Saudi Arabia, it's the GDP and the natural resource that they're going to bring to the table. That's one. So is the leadership enough, good enough to join?
Well, I think leadership is the first.
Okay.
Yes, leadership is the first, and for me, I think that is what President Xi of China and Putin of Russia would want first. They want leaders who have a clear understanding first of what Brics is, who have a clear understanding and a clear projection of what Brics could become in the next 10 years. And President Isayas has shown over time that he's somebody who's able to see to the future. But that's not the only reason. Also, the potential of Eritrea, in terms of its geostrategic location at the home of Africa. President Isayas has also shown a level of dependence. He's the one leader that President Xi and Russia and China and other leaders in the Brics Alliance can actually depend on. And so much about Eritrea is not known. But the potential for Eritrea to contribute even economically is significant. We may not have to look at it in terms of its GDP, but we have to look at it in terms of the potential to grow its GDP, given the right circumstances. One of the reasons the GDP and the economy of Eritrea is not performing at its best has been the blockade, that has been made on the country straight from around, I think, 1999. When sanctions were put on the country and the demonization of the country among Western partners. But the potential to grow, because you see, Mahlet, for any country to grow, it begins from its laws, the policies of that country. And I think looking at Eritrea as a country, the policy framework is the right one. The insistence on self-reliance is the correct one. The insistence on mutually beneficial relationships is the right policy. The discipline of Eritreans as people is another one. If you look at among the most hardworking people within the continent, it's Eritreans. You cannot have managed to have Eritrea today if it wasn't for the national discipline of the people of Eritrea. So the human resource in Eritrea is very, very significant. What this human resource needs is a little bit of an alliance with countries that are willing to operate on a basis of respect. Countries that are willing to offer opportunities and to receive opportunities. Countries that are able to help give this human resource the technology, the exposure, and the kind of infrastructure that is required for them to be able to demonstrate their expertise, for them to be able to leverage their resources and grow as a country. I believe, it is just of recent that we are seeing the government of Eritrea reaching out so much to the world, and not just to any world, reaching out to China, reaching out to Russia, reaching out to other development partners who don't exactly have a very close affinity with the West. It is coming at a time, I think, because President Isayas realizes that in his prophetic insight, this is the moment when the world has gotten different power centers and is trying to take hold of these opportunities. In the past, for example, if this summit was happening maybe 10 years ago, I don't think any of us would have expected President Isayas to attend this summit. I mean, he's always kept himself away. Why out of a sudden are we seeing him giving interviews to the media? Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to Russia and signing contracts? Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to China and signing, business contracts? Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to South Africa, accepting the invitation to go and be part of this alliance? Because he has noticed an opportunity. He has realized that there is now, a broadening of power centers outside those who have disenfranchised and try to bedevil and sanction and subjugate Eritrea. So if he can be able to leverage these opportunities, then we see Eritrea's GDP, blossoming, at an unprecedented rate, because the human resource is there. The national psyche, in terms of the kind of development that should be pursued, is well entrenched in Eritrea. And I think this is what still the think tanks within the Brics Alliance would be looking at. Because some countries have had all the critical factors you need, all the friendships, all the IMF loans, all the World Bank loans, all the kind of packs from the West, and they still have a GDP that's not really so much better than Eritrea. What about Eritrea that has been under sanctions? Now, Russia, China, Brazil, these countries know that Eritrea as a country has all the critical factors, the human resource, it has the natural resources that are still unbroken. If they can ally and be able to give opportunities to this country, it is going to boost it up in terms of the GDP. And so from an economic perspective, they will still benefit from a big GDP. They will still benefit from the human resource, benefit from the resources of Eritrea. And above else, I mentioned this, although I didn't speak much about it, the geopolitical location of Eritrea at the Horn of Africa, next to the Red Sea. This again is a matter that is very significant. It is strategic that they would not just want any country anywhere. The positioning of Eritrea at the Horn of Africa, particularly where it's located, is very significant in maritime politics. The access to the sea, the use of it, and I'm sure China, Russia will be quite interested in this positioning. They have already said that, and they acknowledge the significance of that. So it's just more than, it is not just leadership. Although for me, I see leadership as for me, the biggest, take away that they would want from Africa. I mentioned something recently that Brics is foresighted. Brics is looking at a multipolar world, and they have a particular interest in Africa. Where does the leadership of President Isayas again become significant? It is in offering this experience. It is in cushioning, in cushioning the emerging crop of leaders within the continent who have a multipolar thinking. I'll take you to what's happening right now in West Africa. We have seen the kind of renaissance that is taking place in Mali, what is taking place in Burkina Faso, what is taking place in Niger, and that is going to be spreading. Let me tell you, the kind of understanding, the awareness that they need to take charge of their future, charge of their resources, that they want to be allowed to relate with the world without being forced to choose sides. Now, but these leaders are beginning on a path, Mahlet, that Eritrea began 30 years ago. So the experience of having lived through the 30 years is something that the Brics will be interested in, particularly because they need these countries to continue. One of the biggest beneficiaries of what is taking place, the awakening, the desire for self-assertion, self-determination, what we see in West Africa and other parts of Africa is good. Is good for Brics, but it's not going to be easy. Why won't it be easy? Because while they have chosen this path, you are seeing sanctions coming. You are seeing Burkina Faso being sanctioned right now. You are seeing Niger being sanctioned. Will these leaders be able to maintain the momentum and ensure that that they do not cave in, they do not accept and fall into the pressure? Because they said so much pressure. If they should accept and fall into this pressure, then they go back to the very beginning. A position where Brics would have wanted them to be removed from, and where, as it stands, they have been removed. Now, how do they sustain this path? This is where the leadership, the guidance, and the example in practice of Eritrea comes into play. So again, I am saying, if Brics has Eritrea as a member, if Brics has President Isayas as a member, then they're going to begin to see that he can position himself and offer this kind of leadership, offer his experience, having gone through the same treatment over the last 30 years, offer this experience to the new leaders of Burkina Faso, of Mali, of Niger, and other countries within Africa that are finally breaking off the vestiges of colonialism and beginning to pursue a self-determinant path. So that is where his leadership again comes in. I think, and I believe, Mahlet, that of all the countries that have applied to join the Brics, if you look at their presidents, and a decision has to be made based on the kind of leadership they offer. The president of Eritrea, that is President Isayas, takes the first spot before anybody who would be forced, who would perhaps have to make a decision based on leadership alone.
Interesting. Very, yeah, nicely laid out.